Hello everyone, wishing you a wonderful day. Today, we'll explore a quiet but powerful story about a mother who seems calm after a medical visit, yet may be hiding something she doesn't want her son to know. What is she truly protecting, and how will this unspoken love slowly bring a family closer together? If you enjoy this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you won't miss our upcoming videos. James asked about his mother after the medical appointment as casually as he could manage, his voice steady yet carrying a thin edge of concern that he hoped she would not notice, because he had learned over the years that worry often made her retreat into silence rather than open up, and he feared pushing too hard might only close the door further, so he framed the question as a simple check-in. Nothing dramatic, nothing heavy, just a son asking whether the doctor had said anything worth remembering, whether the medicines were the same, whether she felt tired, because tiredness had become the quiet signal that something was wrong, even when she smiled. His mother responded with a calm reassurance, saying the results were fine, saying it was only the usual aches that came with age, saying the doctor told her to rest more and eat properly. And she spoke with a practiced lightness that suggested she had repeated these words many times before, to neighbors, to relatives, to herself, choosing each phrase carefully to sound ordinary, harmless, almost boring, while avoiding any detail that might invite follow-up questions. And James noticed how she shifted the topic quickly, asking instead about his work, about traffic, about whether he had eaten, as if redirecting the conversation could also redirect fate. He watched her closely as she spoke, the way her shoulders sloped slightly forward, the way her breath paused before certain words, the way her smile arrived a second too late, and he felt a familiar weight settle in his chest, a mix of worry and guilt and helplessness, because he knew she was tired in a way sleep could not fix, and he knew she was protecting him, not because she doubted his strength, but because she believed a mother should carry pain quietly, and the room filled with a gentle tension, nothing loud or dramatic, just a soft, unanswered question hanging in the air, making him wonder what she was choosing not to say. After a brief pause, she surprised him by mentioning Tu Diep and Little Nhi, speaking their names with warmth and ease, saying it had been a long time since she last saw them, saying she missed the sound of a child in the house, and suggesting that they should visit, not formally, not as an announcement, but simply to bring some food, cook a proper meal, and sit together for a while because she believed that sharing a table was the simplest way to feel close to people again. James looked at her with surprise because he had expected hesitation or distance, not initiative, and he felt a quiet happiness rise within him, the kind that comes when hopes align unexpectedly with reality. So he agreed immediately, telling her he would drive, telling her they could go whenever she felt ready, and in that moment, he understood that her suggestion was not impulsive, but carefully considered. A small plan she had likely carried in her heart for some time, waiting for the right moment to speak it aloud. They went shopping together without ceremony, choosing a modest market rather than a large store, moving slowly through familiar aisles, and James watched as his mother examined each item with attention, picking fruits that were ripe but not soft, selecting ingredients that could be turned into comforting dishes, and pausing thoughtfully when she saw snacks she knew Nhi liked, her eyes softening as she placed them into the basket, as if imagining the child's reaction, and she added practical items as well. Small things Tu Diep often forgot to buy for herself, items that suggested care rather than charity, and James began to realize that this was not a courtesy visit, but a quiet investment in everyday life. As they paid and packed the bags, James felt a shift inside himself, recognizing that his mother was not simply accompanying him, but leading the way, expressing love through preparation and foresight, and he felt both humbled and grateful to witness it. The drive to Tu Diep's house was calm and unhurried, James focusing on the road while his mother sat beside him, gazing out the window, occasionally commenting on familiar streets, reminding him not to rush, telling him that work would always be there but health might not. And her words were gentle, almost casual, yet they carried the weight of experience, and James felt again like a child being guided, protected, and advised, not judged, and the car became a small shared space where time slowed enough for reflection. When they arrived, Tu Diep was clearly unprepared for the visit, her surprise visible in the way she paused at the door before smiling, her initial uncertainty quickly giving way to warmth, and James's mother greeted her naturally, without formality or distance, stepping inside as if she belonged there, as if this connection had always existed. And little Nhi ran forward, her voice bright as she called Grandma, wrapping her arms around James's mother with instinctive affection, and in that simple embrace something settled into place, a sense of family forming quietly, without declarations or promises, just presence and care. James's mother lifted Nhi easily, laughing softly, asking about her day, listening closely to every small story, while Nhi clung to her, comfortable and secure, and Tu Diep watched them with emotion she did not try to hide, feeling seen and supported in a way that required no explanation. And in that moment the house felt fuller, warmer, held together by small acts of love that asked for nothing in return, and the scene continued to breathe and unfold naturally as they moved further inside and the conversation flowed, and the sense of belonging deepened, and the afternoon carried them forward into a shared space that felt honest and gentle and open, and waiting for what would come next, while James stood nearby, observing quietly, feeling the layers of his life align in a way he had not expected, noticing how his mother and Tu Diep exchanged small, practical gestures, passing bowls, wiping hands, sharing glances that carried respect and understanding, and he sensed that something steady was forming, not a resolution but a foundation built from patience, listening, and ordinary kindness. And as the minutes stretched, he felt time soften, allowing memories to settle and future possibilities to hover gently as voices overlapped, footsteps moved, and the room held a calm rhythm that promised continuation rather than closure, inviting the story to move forward with the same quiet honesty that had brought them here together. James's mother moved naturally toward the kitchen as if she had been there many times before, setting her bag down, rolling up her sleeves without being asked, and scanning the small space with an experienced eye that immediately understood where everything should go, and her movements were calm and assured, not rushed, not performative, simply the quiet confidence of someone who had spent a lifetime turning ordinary ingredients into something that held people together. And James followed her instinctively, washing his hands, taking the knife she handed him, listening as she explained what needed to be cut first and what could wait, their conversation flowing easily between small comments about the vegetables and gentle questions about work and daily life. And Tu Diep stood nearby at first, unsure whether to step in or stay back, her hands hovering awkwardly until James's mother smiled and invited her to help. Her voice warm and inclusive, and slowly Tu Diep relaxed, taking on small tasks, passing ingredients, wiping the counter, and with each shared movement the air softened, the kitchen filling not only with the scent of cooking, but with a sense of belonging that did not require effort or explanation. James joked lightly as he worked, making small comments about how his mother always knew exactly when to add seasoning, how he never managed to get it right on his own, and his mother laughed, teasing him in return, saying that he had learned enough to survive, but not enough to impress anyone, and then glancing playfully at Tu Diep, adding that her cooking had already spoiled him, and James immediately defended Tu Diep with exaggerated seriousness, saying her food was honest and comforting and that not every meal needed to compete for praise, and their back and forth filled the kitchen with laughter that felt easy and unforced, dissolving any lingering tension, turning the space into something intimate and warm, where age and experience blended naturally with youth and new beginnings. As the meal came together, they moved to the small dining area, placing dishes carefully, Nhi watching with fascination, occasionally reaching out to help before being gently redirected. And when they finally sat down, the table felt fuller than its size suggested, each person occupying not just a chair, but a role within an emerging family rhythm, and Nhi proudly invited everyone to eat, her voice bright and sincere, making sure no one was forgotten. And James's mother watched Tu Diep closely as she helped Nhi with her food, wiping her hands, reminding her to eat slowly, her gestures patient and attentive. And in that quiet observation there was no judgment, only recognition, a silent acknowledgement of care and responsibility that spoke louder than words. And Tu Diep felt it, sensing the approval not as pressure but as trust. Midway through the meal, James's mother set her chopsticks down and spoke honestly, explaining that her visit was not simply a whim, that she had missed Nhi deeply and worried about Tu Diep more than she had ever said aloud, and that with her health no longer as reliable as before, she had begun to think more carefully about time, about presence, about the importance of showing up while she still could. And James felt his chest tighten as he listened, understanding suddenly that the reassurances after the doctor's visit had been incomplete, not lies but omissions born from love, and he remained silent, absorbing the weight of her words, realizing that this moment was not meant to burden him, but to connect them more truthfully. And the tone remained gentle, steady, free of self-pity, simply a sharing of reality as it was. Tu Diep responded with quiet sincerity, thanking her for the care and concern, her voice steady, her words few, choosing instead to express respect through action, refilling bowls, offering food, meeting James's mother's eyes with gratitude that did not need elaboration. And in that exchange, something settled firmly into place. A foundation of mutual understanding, not defined by titles or expectations, but by shared intention. The beginning of a relationship shaped by trust rather than obligation. After the meal, James's mother reached for her bag and revealed the small gifts she had prepared, items chosen with care rather than cost. And Nhi's delight was immediate and wholehearted, her laughter filling the room as she hugged her grandmother tightly, and James watched, feeling a quiet realization take hold, that these gifts were not objects but extensions of love, tangible proof of connection. And as the afternoon stretched onward, the room held that feeling gently, inviting continuation rather than conclusion, allowing the story of their shared lives to move forward naturally from this moment into whatever awaited next, carrying with it the warmth of simple actions and unspoken promises that would continue to unfold without needing to be named. As the warmth of the afternoon settled gently into the house and the echoes of laughter slowly softened, James's mother turned to Tu Diep with a careful, almost hesitant smile, her voice calm but sincere, as she asked whether Nhi could stay with her for the night, explaining that she had missed the child deeply and wanted just a little more time, one quiet night to listen to her stories, to wake up together in the morning. And Nhi's reaction was immediate, her eyes lighting up with excitement as she clapped her hands and moved closer to her grandmother, already imagining the small adventures ahead, while Tu Diep paused, her instinctive hesitation reflecting both a mother's protectiveness and the weight of trust such a request carried. And in that brief silence, James watched her closely, understanding that this was not a simple decision, but a measure of how safe and respected she felt. And when Tu Diep finally nodded, agreeing softly, her expression was gentle but firm. It marked a moment of deep connection, an unspoken acknowledgement that this family bond had grown strong enough to hold shared responsibility and care. Preparations followed naturally without rush, James gathering their things while Nhi talked endlessly about what she wanted to do with Grandma. And as they stepped outside, the light had shifted, the air cooler, carrying a quiet sense of transition. James walked slightly ahead as he led his mother and Nhi toward the car, opening the door, helping them in, his movements attentive and unhurried. And before getting in himself, he paused, taking in the scene behind him where Tu Diep stood watching, her posture relaxed yet thoughtful, and for a moment the world seemed to narrow to the small exchange of glances that said more than words ever could. During the drive, James's mother spoke softly, not wanting to disturb Nhi, who was already leaning against her shoulder, her voice steady as she told James that life moved faster than anyone realized, that youth often believed there would always be time later, but that moments like these were what truly stayed, urging him to slow down, to stop measuring his worth only by what he achieved or provided, and instead to notice the people beside him, the quiet evenings, the simple meals, the laughter that did not demand anything in return. And James listened without responding, his eyes fixed on the road, yet his thoughts turning inward, feeling each word settle deeply, not as advice, but as a gift born of experience and care, something to be carried rather than debated. When they arrived, James helped them inside, ensuring Nhi was comfortable, exchanging a few final words with his mother, and then he stepped back, giving them space, watching as Nhi reached for her grandmother's hand with complete trust, and in that image, James saw a reflection of continuity, of love passed gently from one generation to the next, something resilient and quietly powerful. As he drove back alone, the road felt different, quieter, giving him room to reflect, and by the time he returned, Tu Diep was still there, standing near the doorway, and she turned as he approached, her expression calm and warm, and neither of them rushed to speak, allowing the silence to stretch comfortably between them, both understanding that something meaningful had just occurred. Tu Diep watched the car disappear into the distance earlier, and now she felt a deep, steady warmth settle in her chest, not dramatic or overwhelming, but reassuring, like a gentle promise. And James joined her, standing side by side, sharing the quiet evening. And in that stillness, James realized that family did not need formal declarations or defined roles to exist, that it was being shaped slowly through trust, shared care, and moments of choosing one another without expectation. And as the night settled around them, the story did not close but continued softly forward, held together by affection, understanding, and a growing sense of home that asked for nothing more than to be lived and protected. After a quiet medical visit, James senses his mother is hiding something behind gentle reassurances. Instead of answers, she proposes an unexpected visit to Tu Diep and little Nhi, revealing care through action rather than words. Together, they shop thoughtfully, choosing small practical gifts and favorite treats, showing her deep attention to everyday needs. The drive becomes a tender exchange between generations, filled with advice about health time and slowing down. At Tu Diep House, the surprise turns into warmth as Nhi embraces her grandmother and barriers quietly dissolve. Cooking together creates laughter, trust, and a natural family rhythm. During a simple meal, James' mother admits her worries and the value of showing up while time allows, earning silent understanding from Tu Diep. Gifts given with love strengthen bonds. By night, Nhi stays over and James realizes family is forming.